Welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast with author Sarah F. Hathaway and co-host Chen Gibson, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sarah F. Hathaway and Chen Gibson.
Hello, and welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 315, season 10, episode 5. So I'm going solo today. I didn't actually go solo, but because of technical issues, you guys didn't get to hear the live show. So that's really a bummer. We had a really fun live show, great people in the chat, and lots of good stuff going on. But I had a bit of technical problems. So, eventually I get more subscribers and I'll be able to, have somebody to help me out with all this technical stuff, because my forte is more in self-defense and preparedness lifestyle than it is technology. But, the show must go on. Didn't want to leave you guys hanging. So I'm going to do a quick record today of some of the things that we talked about on Sunday's live show. If you guys want to catch the live show, it happens on Sunday night at 5:30 on Twitch. And you can catch me and Chen over there. We do it every Sunday, pretty religiously, and hope to see you over there. Twitch is an easy platform to join up with. They'll give you notifications when we go live, and then you can be there and get all the action and never have to get a repeat like this episode is. So last week in the bitter end, Swenson was convinced it was time to bug out. He didn't really make that decision on his own, but thanks to Mr. Lee, that decision was made. This week, we're going to catch back up with Dexter. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into Chapter 5 of The Bitter End.
Chapter 6. Dexter dragged his feet across the expanse of the inner city circle. His eyes were just adjusting to the dimming light as night fell. The oppressive chill bit into his bones, and he noticed very few people left on the street. "Everyone needs to be inside soon, Dex," Terrence declared as Dexter walked through the gate. "You're not kidding," Dexter replied, as he produced a small smile. "Seems like fewer and fewer people bother coming out at all." "Everything okay?" Terrence asked. "It's been years since we've seen the sun. And with the feds pushing in again, it's getting old," Dexter explained, deflecting the question. "The underground base is working. Burgess sent another large group west this morning. They should be coming back through the tunnels any minute now," Terrence replied. "The tunnels in the mountain are staying hidden, right? No sign of the feds?" Dexter wondered. "Nope. Burgess's plan is working like a gem. The feds think the people are fleeing west. They'll never see our army coming," Terrence declared proudly. Dexter's smile widened. "I hope you're right, Terrence," he agreed, saying goodbye. Heading home, Dexter continued through the frozen facade that existed above the ground to a hatch in the floor in a back bedroom. Climbing down the hole, he gripped the ladder tightly as he descended into the space below. 2 light bulbs hanging from a cord crossed the ceiling to light his way down the hall. Grimes greeted him as he emerged through the doorway. "Everything okay with your mom, Dex?" "For now," Dex replied, walking down the hallway. He followed the electrical cord into a passage with light bulbs periodically hanging along the ceiling. Turning to the right, he entered his room. Inside, Megan sat amid a pile of material scraps. She was sewing them into a large quilt. She set her work aside, standing from the chair with a wide smile. Her golden wavy hair fell about her shoulders and her hazel eyes sparkled at him. "How did you do?" she asked. "We rescued over 100 people. No supplies, though," he said in a huff of disappointment as he came over to kiss her. Dexter went over and plopped down in a chair at the table, lost in thought. Noticing he wasn't acting like himself, Megan approached him. "We'll make it work, Dex," she told him, assuming he was concerned about the state of the city. "Your dad has all those seating rooms going, and Nathan is talking about algae we can grow to feed everyone." Dexter looked at her with surprise. Sounds delicious, he said sarcastically. She smiled at his joke. Maybe I can make some good algae cookies. He shook his head at her with a small grin. His mind was lost in thought. Megan stood there for a moment, sensing there was more on his mind than the lack of food. That problem was not a new one. What's going on with you, Dex? Megan asked, trying to get him to open up. It's nothing, he replied, not sure he wanted to discuss his feelings. I want your baby as bad as you do, Dex, she assured him. I was infertilized too. I learned to live with that a long time ago. But your baby would be different. I would raise it like my own, she assured him. I know, Megan. We've had this conversation, Dexter replied gruffly. Then what's on your mind? She asked softly, hoping he could share his feelings and she could help him in some way. One of the slaves we rescued today came from TJ's stock, he explained. And she said something? Megan inquired. She told me TJ told her that if she ever met DJ Swenson, to tell him his brother is alive and doing well, Dexter professed, staring up into her eyes as a tear streamed down his cheek. He quickly wiped it away and continued in an angry voice. It's a boy, Megan. My son. TJ is holding him and filling his mind with poison. Megan stepped closer and held him tightly. There was nothing she could say or do to heal the pain that lived there. We will get him, Megan assured Dexter. There has to be a way. What am I supposed to do? Trade my mom for my son? Dexter asked seriously, looking to her for an answer. Megan stared at him quietly as she thought about the answer. Megan, you're supposed to say no and disagree quickly, Dexter snapped at her. She's the one that suggested it, and I think she is right. She escaped Swenson once. She can do it again, Megan admitted. No, Dexter responded sharply. I could never live with myself. I was there, Megan. His eyes conveyed a deep fear that Megan had never seen before. Dexter looked down, thinking about the day his mother broke for Swenson. Dexter was there. It was my fault. If I'd just let the arrow hit him, he told himself, softly touching the scar on his cheek. He had tears in his eyes when he looked back up at Megan, declaring, he didn't just torture her. He took a sickening pleasure in it. My family has always protected one another. I couldn't live with that. I understand, Dex, Megan said, trying to console him. No, you don't, Dexter barked, suddenly stepping away from her. I can't believe you would ever suggest such a thing. Taking a deep breath, Dexter's eyes turned dark with hatred as his mind swirled in the anger. I watched my mother give herself to TJ Swenson because he threatened my life. That woman would do anything for me. She is the strongest individual I know, and I've always admired that. She broke because of me. Now you expect me to watch that happen again because of my son? His face contorted into a furious glare as he dwelled on the incident. Overcome with rage, Dexter couldn't stay here with her any longer. Standing up, he stormed over to the door. Dexter, Megan called as she walked towards him, but he didn't slow his stride. Dexter, she called, catching the door as he tried to close it. Hearing the desperation in her voice, Dexter turned back to look at her for a second. Seeing the concern in her expression, his frustration subsided for a moment. I'll be back, he assured her, continuing down the hall. Dexter furiously stomped down the underground hallway. Turning a series of corners, the fighters he saw along the way snapped to attention. His mind swirling with uncertainty, Dexter barely noticed the people. As he entered a large room, the individuals engaged in training exercises inside were called to a halt. They saluted him, and Dexter acknowledged the fighters as he walked towards the offices dug into a back wall. Peeking inside Bennett's office, Dexter noticed there was a meeting of squadron leaders happening inside. In his current state, he hesitated to enter. "Dexter!" Daniel called, approaching. His light brown hair dripped with sweat, and he carried a wooden sword in his hand. "Hi, Daniel. How's my favorite little bro?" Dexter asked, using the conversation with the young man to put his mind elsewhere. "I'm your only little bro," Daniel told him smartly. "That's why you're my favorite," Dexter teased. "Are you going to see Bennett?" Daniel asked, changing the subject. "Yeah, why?" Dexter wondered. "Tell him I'm ready to go out with the next squad," Daniel requested. Dexter looked concerned. "Mom wouldn't want you to go out," he replied, trying to hide the fact that Dexter didn't want him out there either. "Mom didn't want you to go after General McClintock or Gear, and you did," Daniel countered. "Aren't you still working on painting the tunnels?" Dexter countered, watching the squadron leaders leave Bennett's office. "Don't change the subject, Dex. I want my chance to join the fight," Daniel insisted. "Danny, I'm not sending you out there." "But you need volunteers," Daniel countered. "Even the fighters on the line are barely moving right now. It's so cold out there," Dexter responded. "Don't give me that bullcrap line, Dex," Daniel replied. "What's going on, gentlemen?" Bennett wondered, noticing them arguing outside his office. "Nothing, sir. I was just leaving," Daniel responded, perturbed with his brother's refusal. "What's up with him?" Bennett wondered. "He wants to go out on a mission," Dexter told him, walking with Bennett back to his office. "Still?" Bennett replied. "He came in last week with that request. I told him no. He's too young to be out there." Bennett had watched Daniel grow up. He had consoled the boy at some of Daniel's worst moments. Bennett loved the young man like a son. There was no way he was going to send him to his death. "Next time I head out, he can come with me. That should keep him busy," Dexter told Bennett. Bennett scowled at the prospect. "What are you doing here anyway? Didn't you just get back?" "Yeah," Dexter replied, sitting down in the chair next to the desk. "Shouldn't you be enjoying the night with your fiancée?" Bennett asked with a smirk. "We brought in more refugees today," Dexter said, sidestepping the comment. "Any more food?" Bennett asked. "No," Dexter said grimly. Bennett pulled a bottle from his drawer, pouring a small amount into 2 glasses. He silently handed one to Dexter. Bennett analyzed the young man's guarded behavior and hoped the alcohol might help him open up. Dexter drank down the liquid and put the glass on the desk. "We have to get her out," he declared. Bennett's brow furrowed in curiosity. "Who?" he wondered. "Christy and the baby," Dexter replied. Bennett held Dexter's gaze, drinking down his glass. "Have you really thought this out, Dexter?" Bennett questioned. "How do you mean?" Dexter wondered. "That's my son out there. With him." "I know. And I knew a lot of soldiers that had kids out there. Sometimes you have to face the reality that you won't be a part of their lives." Bennett spoke as if he had experience in that department. "The soldiers you knew had wives at home boning their physical trainers. Their sons weren't being raised by the man leading the enemy army," Dexter retorted. "Okay, so we go there, and you get Christy and the baby and bring her back here against her will. How do you think that's going to work out with Megan?" Bennett wondered. "Megan wants to trade my mom for the baby," Dexter told him. "What?" Bennett asked, shocked. "She said my mom suggested it. That my mom could escape, but the baby can't," Dexter explained, disgusted by the suggestion. "Erica said that?" Bennett asked, rubbing his thumb and forefinger across the sides of his walrus mustache. "I guess so," Dexter replied. "I'll make sure to keep a sharper eye on her," Bennett said, half to himself. "Dexter, if he captures her again, she would never escape. I've seen the look he has in his eyes before. Men like that won't let mistakes happen twice. He would own her forever." "I know that, Bennett. Remember, I was there with them," Dexter assured him, touching the scar on his cheek again. "I just don't know what to do. I never thought I would have a child." A tear slid down his cheek. "Whatever comes of it, I have to get him." You're going to have to wait until we can make a full assault, Bennett told him. Harold reported some major chatter. The Supreme General is being moved south. They're abandoning the north. Then they'll be right there, directly on the other side of the line, Dexter said with a smile. That means they'll have their full force sitting right on our doorstep. We're going to have a lot more to worry about than a baby soon, Bennett warned him. Dexter presented his cup for Bennett to fill it again. Twisting the collar off the mason jar, he filled the cup half full. Dexter sat back, sipping on the alcohol. With the Ogallala frozen, they can move straight across, Dexter said, thinking out loud. There's no cover out there, Bennett told him. Our defenses have been holding, but they're going to be tested. If we could take him, we'd end it all, Dexter replied, still thinking on his son. How do we draw him out without putting your mom in danger, Bennett replied. When you figure it out, let me know, Dexter countered, rising from his chair. For now, I'm going to get some shut-eye. Looks like you need it, Bennett agreed, walking him out the door. Don't worry, we'll figure this out. I hope so, Dexter answered as he left.
All right, so, Dexter has this fight with Megan over his mom, and then he has this argument with Daniel, and then he's, at odds with Bennett over what should be done about Christy and that. So he's really in this turmoil point, and, it's just the age, a lot of things going on, so we're going to have to keep an eye on what's going on with Dexter. But it brought us into the topic of children of the apocalypse and really what would happen to the children. So my research started out with what did the children of the Revolutionary War do? And younger boys were drummer boys. They helped to control the movements of the forces. They were also messenger boys. And the girls really helped raise the siblings, do field work and housework. They kept the farms going while the men were away. The food was mostly salted, pickled, dried, smoked, or canned because they didn't have food storage. So when you're on the move and you don't have access to refrigeration and things like that, that's what you're relying on. It was a highly stressful lifestyle, lots of work to be done, and most saw either their families die or they saw a lot of death during that time. It was tight living quarters with little privacy, so they really shared each other's problems and relied on one another a lot. From ages 6 to 8, they learned to read and write, and only the wealthy kids went to school, and all the colleges were shut down during that time. There was more schooling in the north than the south, and the clothing was all mostly handmade. And that really brought me to an interesting topic of, how many people know how to sew nowadays? How many people are teaching their children how to sew? It's so important because they need to know how to be able to repair things, to fix backpacks and tents and tarps and clothing. So that was really an interesting thing that, I kind of really thought about. Then I looked over, at a society that's collapsed currently in our world, and Venezuela is one of those countries. 24 out of 1,000 children are murdered each year. They're fleeing the country alone. They're falling behind educationally. 1 in 32 children dies before their 5th birthday. That's 5 times more than in the United States. 16% of girls age 15 to 19 are already married. 16% of girls age 15 to 19 are already married. And 1 in 12 girls age 15 to 19 have already given birth. So that's quite an interesting look at what happens in a collapse. Women need protection, and then without the access to birth control and whatnot, you're going to have those younger birth rates. 17% of school-age children are not attending school. They're being forced into child labor, doing domestic work, mining, or they're commercially sexually exploited. They're dying from hunger, malnutrition, cholera, malaria, and COVID has caused massive halts in relief efforts for these children. I was watching a Discovery Channel program a while back, and it was all about the collapse and what would happen. And they were saying how packs of wild children would be a risk because they could lash out quickly, and they're very fearful and untrusting. So I was doing research there and found many, many cases where feral children who were separated from human contact were raised by primates, wolves, dogs, bears, sheep, cattle, goats, even ostriches, or just left alone in the world. So the ostrich was the one that was kind of crazy to me, being raised by ostriches. So taking those references and kind of projecting out what would happen to American children after the fall of our society. And the reality is that a lot of Americans, if we were cut off from our food supply and our medical supply, would die anyway, just people in general. The children and the elderly are going to be the most at risk of starvation. And the food supply is not going to be what they're accustomed to. So they're going to have to really adapt to this new situation. And that's going to be very tough for some kids. They're not going to want to eat that. They're going to want to eat their grapes and their hot dogs and the things that they're used to. And so that puts them even more at risk. Survivors will have watched a lot of their family and a lot of other people die. So that's going to be interesting psychologically. It's going to be really, really tough. They have to survive the disease. All this death is going to cause a lot of disease. And then, you have food and water contamination that happens when things aren't properly maintained and different factories go down and stuff like that. So really only the strong are going to survive. So it's important that you make sure your children are healthy. They're getting a good, healthy diet. They're not just relying on sugars and things like that. They're exposed to the dirt and to some germs so they can build up that immune system. The more that you break them off from the world and keep their immune system from naturally building up, the more you're putting them at risk for a future scenario when they don't have access to these things that we do nowadays and their bodies aren't prepared to handle that. You're just setting them up for a disaster. Today's children have it really easy. They'll have to rapidly adapt to a much more physical lifestyle. I mean, many of us as parents, the chores are really, if you look at it in comparison to what it was 100 years ago, our chores are really limited and light. And so a lot of times we just take care of them because we don't want to hassle with trying to get the kid to do it and things like that. And we're really doing our children an injustice by doing that, because the children need to have experience doing those things. They need to understand what it takes to make life work. And they need to be used to working sometimes. Get a shovel in your hands. What's that all about, So there won't be any more of these hours-long electronics play and things like that. And they need to be ready to adapt to this lifestyle, as much of us need to be ready for that as well. Clothing. Children grow so fast, and they grow out of clothing. And so this is why the sewing is important, because you can make your own clothes. But scavenging is going to be huge, because kids grow out of shoe sizes sometimes really, really rapidly. And so we need to be able to provide them with the new shoes, the new things they need. So being able to sew, being able to repair, things like that is going to be very, very important skills for them. And then, just planning, staging out if they needed this shoe, that shoe, this shoe. And I know you can't go out and buy them all, but if you have an older sibling, you can save some of the ones that are in good condition, do something like that. Children in battle. So the kids have to be ready to defend themselves without an adult. What if you're not there? They need the skills to be able to defend themselves and not become a victim. It's very, very important. I've got some great episodes on anti-kidnapping things and self-defense for kids. And I really suggest that you put them in some kind of a martial arts program where they are pushed to understand that stress level and those circumstances when they come up, so they're ready for it. Kids can reload weapons. They can take care of, little things that need to be done behind the scenes while the main people are out fighting. But remember that kids have really sensitive hearing. So you want to make sure to protect their ears. The headphones that block the ambient, or that allow the ambient noise but block the firearms noise, are great, but they do run on batteries. So think about that. It's really, really cheap to buy earbuds and things like that will help protect their ears. So go ahead and make sure that you stock some of those just in case that they needed that. And when it comes down to it, it is what it is, but not a bad idea to stock some of those types of items. And then I see a huge potential for a lot of children just becoming these feral children where, horrible things happen to their family and they're just left alone. And it could really create like a new breed of almost human coming out of this because of these horrific lives that they experienced. Okay, let's go ahead and get into some of the Changed Earth news. I know we're moving quick today, but like I said, we did the live show and it just kind of fell apart. So I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. Couldn't leave my podcast peeps hanging. So I wanted to go ahead and do a quick record for you. And that's what this is. And just so you know, the audio drama is going to be as epic as ever when it comes out. I've been working really hard on that. And I'll be really excited to show that to you. I'm digitally remastering the whole first season as well. So it'll have its own channel and it's going to be fully refurbished, so to speak. And it is coming along really, really, really well. Prepper Camp is also coming up September 24th, 25th, and 26th. I really hope to see you guys out there. Buy some tickets if you haven't yet. As Chin says, it's always like a big family reunion, and I can't wait to see all my friends and peeps out there. I'll be teaching a couple classes, urban survival and self-defense, so I hope to see you at my class. And also come say hi at the booth. That would be great, and can't wait to see you there. So for the Changing Earth news, we have a coronal mass ejection inbound. It's expected to hit tonight. The day of the recording is Sunday. Like I say, we're live on Sunday nights at 5:30 on Twitch. That's Central Standard Time. But if you join up on Twitch, they'll give you a little notification when we're going live. We have the Class C that's supposed to hit us tonight, and then we have a Class M right behind that, chasing it. So it's been a really active week on the sun. I need to stay abreast of that and get ready for these because we're going to see some solar activity from this, and it'll be an interesting test of our magnetic shield. Prayers to everybody down in Louisiana and Mississippi, where Ida hurricane is currently impacting. Baja is also going to get hit as well with a tropical storm. Off the coast of Madagascar, an 800-meter tall submarine volcano connecting the East African Rift to the Madagascar Rift has formed. A really neat stuff to see our planet in action. It's awakening this ancient fault, and there's an 800-meter tall submarine volcano growing there, which is incredible. We had flooding in southern Russia, in Italy, Venezuela, China saw a major 397 acres of crops destroyed. South Korea was hit by Typhoon Omayas. Spain saw flash flooding. Colombia also had farmlands and homes destroyed by mudslides and flooding. The fires are still burning in California. The Calder fire is now starting to invade on South Lake Tahoe, so they had to do a big evacuations there, and I'm just hoping that one doesn't take out South Lake because it's a beautiful place to be. Brazil saw some major wildfires. One half of the Juggery Park was burned, and in Sacramento, 23 homes were on fire. And if you guys have the app called My Radar and you set on the wildfire setting and pan back from the United States, you'll see that the whole West Coast is basically on fire, stretching north into Canada and all the way up to Alaska. It's pretty intense stuff, and all that is going up into the atmosphere and has a big impact on our planet. As for earthquakes, Hawaii had a swarm of 350 quakes at Kilauea. Russia had a 6.1 at the Kuril Islands. Honduras saw a 5.0. And then following that earthquake at the Kuril Islands, their volcano there, Ebeco, exploded with a big eruption. We saw a tornado in China, and the fires in California are still just burning like crazy. They're evacuating South Lake Tahoe, as I mentioned before, and it's just a nightmare. 1,683,000 acres burned so far this year. As far as volcanoes go, generally the activity is down. We had 25 active, we had 17 with minor activity, and we had 43 showing general signs of unrest. All right, guys, I'm really sorry this was a short show, and I hope you read the blog and whatnot. Head on over to my website and become a supporter, and you get tons of background information plus access to the audiobooks. I'm doing an audiobook a month. And come on over to Twitch and listen to the live show. We'd love to have you there on Sunday night and hear your opinions and thoughts and get feedback. It's always makes the show a lot of fun. You can do that by going to www.changingearthseries.com. That's www.changingearthseries.com. All right, guys, everybody stay free out there. Until next time, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sarah and Chen for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster at www.authorSarahFHathaway.com. If you love the Changing Earth series and podcast,